West, y'all.
Cool. So on the podcast today, on the Success Recipe, we have an amazingly talented guy. He has had an amazing career, done many things. We're going to find out more about that later. But today I have joining me Kelvin Taylor. Brother, thank you for joining me today.
Thank you for having me. How's everything?
Yeah, good, man. Yeah, good. How are you holding it down during lockdown?
Coping with lockdown here in New Zealand is it's been pretty interesting. So yeah, just keeping fitness, keeping busy, trying to do auditions in a safe space. So I have to have friends pre-record things and send it to me. So but yeah, other than that, I can't complain, man. I'm grateful. I think everyone was a bit on a treadmill, so it's a bit of a break, and everyone needed it for sure.
Yeah. I mean, obviously you're originally from the States, and a lot of questions about that sort of dynamic as well. And there's plenty to talk about with your career as well. But obviously, you just said, like, we're in lockdown here in New Zealand. What's your thoughts and feelings about how kind of we're dealing with the pandemic? And obviously back in America, everyone's out enjoying their summer, got their freedoms and everything like that. Like, how have you personally felt about having to go through lockdown here?
I think the lockdown here has been handled as best as it possibly can. To be honest, I feel like America is sort of like a controlled plane crash. Means it's going down, but it's still like somewhat controlled. So it's just like chaos in the middle of everything. But I feel like New Zealand's doing things as ethically as possible. I would say, to try to curb the spread of the virus. So yeah, so I think they're doing the best they can. That's all my assessment on it, and I think they're doing a pretty decent job regarding that.
Yeah, I lived over there for 5 years myself, and recently moved back to New Zealand. But like, I got a lot of friends over there still, and kind of, they talk to me about how we're doing with it and stuff. And yeah, I think it's interesting. And one thing I'll at least say is that, like, I'm glad to be back home during a crazy time like this. Like, there's nothing like kind of being home and close to loved ones and family and stuff. So like, do you have does the majority of your family and friends still over in the States?
Yeah, majority of families in the States, and they're coping with it best they can. Most of my family is like scattered around. I got family in Virginia Beach, New York. My hometown's Virginia Beach, but got family there. And yeah, so family's just kind of scattered around. But I would say that they're doing the best they can. Most of them have panicked because of the news. Went straight and got vaccines because of the news. So it's interesting. Oh, in America, it doesn't take much to get people to do something. You just put it on Fox or MSNBC, and they're gonna run and do something. So
Yeah. So what brings you to New Zealand? How long have you been here? What brought you here?
man, New Zealand. I got here in 2010. I was seeing a young lady who was from Australia, and we were sort of in a relationship, and it was falling apart. And prior to that, I decided that me and her would try to meet each other in New Zealand. I lived in Australia, actually, for 2 years prior. I was in Sydney, and then I moved to Perth. And I had no idea about immigration or how to, like, be able to continue a work visa. So I ended up having to go back to the States. And while I was there, I told her, like, look, I think we should just go to Auckland and see how it goes. Let's just try to meet there. But she was going to uni, and it was more cost efficient for her to stay in Australia. So we both ended up parting ways for different reasons. And I just ended up here. And I ended up staying. My third day here, I got signed to a modeling agency known as Red 11. And I just met this model randomly off the street, and she just walked by, saw me. She's like, "Wait, you're kind of tall." She was like, "Have you done any modeling work before?" And I was like, "Yeah, locally, like, but just within Virginia." And she said, "Okay, well, here, take my card, go to this agency, just look at this card, call them tomorrow." Called them, they brought me in, they signed me. So yeah, that's how I got here. It was actually off of love. the premise of love, and then I found this country which I did research on, but I didn't know too much about. You know, I just wanted to be able to touch the ground and get to meet more different Polynesian people and different Maori people. Because I met some Polynesians and Maoris while I was in Australia, in Western Australia, in Perth, and that was my first time being exposed to a lot of Polynesian culture. So I was excited to get here. So yeah.
Mm. And 11 years later, you're still here.
Yeah, I'm still here. This place is it's home. It's been a very beautiful, very open, very safe space to be in with people. You know, just it's different cultures that come here, and everyone's. What's interesting, I feel like about New Zealand is that I feel like everyone here is not from here for the most part, and it's a place still trying to find its way and trying to do things as ethically as possible in regards to human rights and trying to acknowledge their role in their past as best as possible. And I think they've done a better job than a lot of other Western countries.
Yeah, and it's, especially like Auckland being, yeah, yeah, and I mean Auckland is basically the hub of that in New Zealand, so it's definitely, yeah, it's definitely trying to evolve and move forward as I guess ethically and morally as it can. So, so before you came to New Zealand, were you doing a lot of acting? And you said you're doing some modeling, but had you kind of cracked it in terms of acting and stuff back over there?
What's interesting is I was only doing modeling work locally in my home state of Virginia. I was modeling for Billionaire Boys Club, which is Pharrell Williams, his clothing brand. So it was more of a cross collaboration with another hip hop clothing brand called Schmack, and so BBC, Billionaire Boys Club, and Schmack were both coming up at the same time. So Pharrell was bringing his clothing back home. This other designer was doing his clothing, and so they just paired up. And I just started modeling locally for them. And I did theater in high school, but I never thought I would end up acting. And what's interesting is most people look at me and they're like, "You're American, so it's kind of smart that you went to New Zealand, and that's a backdoor route for you to start your career." And I was like, actually, I had no intentions of moving to New Zealand and acting. I got here, and that I just got signed to the modeling agency, and so from there, everything just took off. And the modeling agency was like, "Hey, you did any commercial work before?" And I was like, "Nah." And they're like, "Okay, we're gonna put you forward for some commercials." And then it came to me as like, "Hey, you ever did acting?" And I was like, "Yeah, I did theater in high school, but like, I didn't think it was gonna be any big deal." And yeah, and then from there, they were like, "Okay, cool, we're gonna put you forward for some auditions." So my love for acting and arts really didn't start in the States. It started in New Zealand. And it's just my accent. It throws people off. So they hear it and they're like, "Oh, you did this in America and then you came here." And I'm like, New Zealand was the place where I found what I love and that I can wake up and do every day, to be honest. But yeah, in the States, yeah, I did some modeling gigs and things of that sort and just local stuff, but never thought that I would fall into to acting and it would be practical. Even while I was in Australia, I was just working at Foot Locker. There was no modeling and acting. I was modeling prior to that, but I got to Aussie and I was just trying to like find myself. So that's yeah, that's how that came about.
How has the work that you've done here kind of opened doors for you, or I guess impacted your recognition for roles looking to land back over in the States?
I think it's opened up quite a few doors, to be honest, in different ways, because it's made my journey unique in the regard that I am African American, but I ended up going into New Zealand and my work started here. So when people look me up and they see that my work started in New Zealand, it's like they're trying to gauge that, whoa, you've got a different story and perspective about how all of your career starts and beginnings came along. And I don't even like to term it as career. It's more of an opportunity. I feel like people in art, it's especially in acting, it's just an opportunity. And the fact that anyone looks at you and wants to give you an opportunity to see your value and give you a chance, I think it's a beautiful thing that they see something in you. But it's helped me in various ways, just because I've been able to hopefully made the best of each relationship and opportunity that I've had, and I think I've done a good job of being grateful and appreciating anyone that I've had the opportunity to work with and leave them with a lasting impression that they're like, you know what, this guy, he's different, you know. And I didn't study acting at all. Like I I just sort of fell into it. I studied later here in New Zealand. I studied while I was in New Zealand, but it's something I totally fell into. So, you know, it's and that's what you have to do is jump in the pool. Just jump in. It's cold, but then eventually you figure out how to swim, move around in it. So yeah, I hope that answers.
Nice.
You mentioned that, like, meeting the Polynesians and Māori culture and kind of getting to know that and stuff. And in terms of, I guess, the acting industry here, how do you feel, I guess, they're portrayed or utilized within the industry, say, compared to, like, African Americans back in the United States? You always see the award ceremonies and sort of, the scrutiny around who is always getting nominated and stuff like that. And it's a very conscientious, I guess, topic, and always has been, and hopefully not, but it seems like it always will be. Race comes into it. But how do you think New Zealand kind of recognizes Māori and Pacifica within the acting community over here?
I feel like New Zealand, they're doing a good job representing Maori culture and Pakeha, which is European. I think with Polynesian culture, I think they're doing some things that are great in strides, but I feel like there's still more to be done. I feel like there's more to be done on a vast scale as far as diversity goes. And I actually just got through writing an article that I submitted to two media companies here, and I won't say their names because I don't want to bash them or anything of that sort. But the subject matter was based upon me being, I was the first African American male on reality TV here in New Zealand, with my stint on Come Dine With Me. And they were the first African female that had her stint on reality TV. Her name was Ajo Chol, and she was on the very first season of New Zealand's Next Top Model in 2009. And I just looked at those two, the parallel of my experience and her experience, and seeing how that played out for representation on a TV screen. And I'm not too sure how Ajo's doing, so I've been just always really curious about her story, and then just about if there has been any other Africans on TV, because there's African performers that they do want to act, they do want to perform here, but they feel like they're not considered Kiwi. So I wrote this article, and those two media outlets rejected it. One of them I've actually written an article for before, and they accepted that article, but because it was talking about and my conversation, I wrapped up my article very nicely because it started off initially about me and Ajol, but it led into me explaining about the importance of diversity all around in a very holistic way, that the person that controls images controls minds. And what I mean by that is when a person can start seeing themselves on screen, it gives them something to relate to from a very human point of view. And as a child, if you're watching a TV screen and you don't see anyone that looks like you that often, then it can be daunting, you know. So and I was explaining that's how Fast and Furious works so well. It works so well as a franchise because everyone can look at someone on that film and go, man, that could be me, you know. And the fact that they've had a Moldy actor in there recently, shouts to Vinny Bennett, that played the young Dominic Toretto. Like that in itself is beautiful, but it shows diversity works and it sells. But I'm not for sure everyone's open for that topic. So diversity, I feel like, is a subject that people tend to use as it's social. It's just for like social PR. It sounds good on paper, and they're. I feel like they're open-minded, diversity-wise, when it comes to sexual things. Sexuality affects every ethnic group, but unfortunately, race relations doesn't affect every ethnic group. So they can kind of turn a blind eye or close their ear towards certain subjects that might not fit well with what they want out. So
Yeah, I think it's interesting you said that because, you know, in New Zealand, what we were the first country to give ladies the vote, right? But yeah, I think that the diversity thing is that's still you know in a stage of struggle. And yeah, I mean, there's been some great shows. You know, talking about the Panthers that recently came out to really, you know, my fiance, she's British. Yeah. My fiance, she's British, right? But she wasn't aware of, I guess, the struggles that Polynesians had to endure, you know, in the 70s and 80s, like, you know, my father and stuff. And so that's only literally been brought to light recently.
yeah, no, the what the Polynesian Panthers went through, what the Polynesian community went through with the Dawn raids, period. That whole experience. I mean, it was beautiful that the Prime Minister, Jacinda Ardern, she gave that acknowledgement of the situation and that it happened, and that's how a society begins to heal is through acknowledgement. You know, when there's no acknowledgement, you know, there's no change because the person's not willing to admit there's a problem. So, just a slight compare, real quick. It's like the situation in America where America had a role in, you know, the human trafficking of Africans and bringing Africans to America, or even genocide of Native Americans. But there's no real acknowledgement of it. It's just something that happened, and they're like, okay, you're here, let's not talk about it. And so when you kick crumbs underneath the carpet, it starts molding and smelling. And so what happened is people keep complaining and upset that race relations keep being brought up, but it's like you never sorted your mess. You took your mess and you kicked it underneath the carpet. And it's like, no, you've gotta clean it. And the way to clean it is to have acknowledgement. So the fact that New Zealand has had acknowledgement here regarding that, even next door in Australia with the Aborigines people, you know, the fact that there was an acknowledgement. I know there was an Olympic year around that, so I don't know if that was PR, but the fact that there was an acknowledgement of some sort, that's how society begins to heal. They start to have a consciousness about how they deal with other ethnic groups and other people and be mindful that these people have been through a fair bit. So yeah, the Polynesian Panther story, the whole story of what Pacifica has been through here in New Zealand is it's powerful, and I hope I want that program to make it across the board onto Netflix in the U.S. I want people in the States, African Americans, every culture, but specifically because it was a Black Panther, you know, chapter in New Zealand. African Americans need to hear this story,
Yeah.
and so I'm doing all I can.
Exactly.
I'm doing all I can to make sure that diversity is on the forefront because people's stories need to be heard and they need to be told, and yeah.
And I think it's important what you said about, you know, like it's important for children to see themselves represented, you know, on TV on the big screen. And for me, like an amazing sort of moment in the past couple of years, you know, was Chadwick playing Black Panther. Like that movie was so dope, and also to see the impact that he had on, you know, the African American community and young children. And you know, they're like, we've never seen, like, Superman is white, like all these superheroes have never been of color. And I mean, the impact that Black Panther, you know, rest in peace, like that was amazing.
Yeah, totally. Chadwick, and just how he handled that role, just how Chadwick has a certain amount of he has this elegance and classic. He has a very classical way of performing that comes out that I don't see in a lot of actors, but he definitely came up in a very theater background, And so he hones this sort of prestige. You can feel it when he's performing, that it's coming out in a certain way, that it's regal. So they cast the right actor for Black Panther, just off the fact that he has a very regalness to his performance. And yeah, just being able to see that was fantastic. I think the only person that would ever have an issue with that is Wesley Snipes, because he was Blade, and also probably Michael Jai White because he was Spawn. So they'll both contest. Like, wait a minute, we
Yeah.
were the first African superheroes. But shouts to
Exactly.
Blade,
Yeah.
shouts to
Anti-hero.
Spawn. Exactly. But big love to Black Panther. Yeah, I think it was the African connection that did it, and then in this time period too, it's able to be marketed in another way. So.
So you've done a lot of work. I've looked through all the stuff you've done. You've also obviously have quite a passion for comedy as well. So like, what is your true passion in terms of where you wanted to take your career? Is it more of a serious role, or are you more leaning towards the comedic side of things?
I think I like being in a sandbox in general. I like coming in and what I ended up realizing about me pursuing acting, and what I fell in love with, was the fact that you get to play dress up every day, and you get to tell stories. And I'm like, who wouldn't want to play dress up and just be a character? It's Halloween essentially. It's child's play, so you get to play every day. And if someone likes the way that you play, then you have an opportunity out of that to show your Rolodex and your talents. And yeah, so I love comedy, but I love any role all around. Honestly, I like just being able to try to bring something to life and honor the writer in the best way possible, and bring some humanity to it. But comedy I absolutely adore, because it just, we need laughter. Like in times like this, what we're dealing with, everyone's trying to keep their mental health together and stay nice and sane and stable during this lockdown, and people have to deal with themselves or their spouse. And I think laughter is what saves humanity all around. I think the ability to laugh about things and our differences, that I feel like we're not above reproach and critique. Like that's how we move ahead. And even if we make jokes about our differences, I think that's the beauty of everything. I mean, even I would say with the LGBTQ community. I mean, Ellen DeGeneres made her career off cracking jokes on other people and joking on herself. So I feel like comedy all around is it's a platform where people can still express themselves, and it's not malicious. It's just highlighting social points that and social differences that we can observe, that people see, that they don't say, that they can find humor in, and it might open up dialogue for deeper discussions, and it just, I think it heals people. Laughter heals people. So I'm all for comedy, and being as a performer, I just want to make people feel great. I want to make people feel great, and if I can do that through comedy, great. If I can do that as being a villain, and they just love me being a villain, then fantastic. But I'm humble because I'm still on my way up, and I think uh, that's the beauty of this journey, is that it's a slow drip for me. It's been a slow drip.
Yep, nice. What do you think of the New Zealand humour?
New Zealand humor. Oh, New Zealand humor it's great. It's great. It's different. It's different for sure. It's very
Yeah.
different
Very different.
because I think there's a sort of a British influence on it a little bit. It's a little dry humor as well, um, and yeah, it's different in the sense that I would say for an Americans, they tend to like wet humor. It's just in your face. It's raw. They're just saying whatever. The most offensive thing that you would not think of. It's just very blunt. British is, as far as the UK goes, their humor is more of, they'll say something. It's subtle, but you might get it maybe 2 minutes later, because you have to sit and think about what just happened, and you're like, oh, now I get it. So I feel like Kiwi comedy is a mix of both to some degree. I think there's a bit of like, sometimes it's just overt like chaos that will happen, and then there is a bit of like British humor and satire that's thrown in. So I think it's a mix of both. But I like Kiwi humor. It's different.
Yeah, it's very different. Has living here for the past 10 years, sort of not confused, but like made it hard for you to kind of stay true to, I guess, American comedy roots, and then also like, kind of being somewhere morph of both.
Yeah. No. I no. I think I think no. I think I can see the difference between both of them of the comedy styles and just humor, society, slang. I feel like all around what it's done is it opened my mind to a whole different Rolodex of just different ways that you can look at something, the perspectives or ways that you can perform something. So I think if anything, it sort of enhanced that how I look at humor and how I look at slang and communicating, and yeah, I don't think it's been any kind of hindrance or detriment. I feel like it's been an advancement. So and that's the beauty of living in another culture is that it even dating another culture, which I've done a lot, my track record, but with dating in another culture or being or living amongst another culture, it questions your ideas of what you thought was normal, what you thought was okay, what you used to think was wrong. It opens up your mind in a way that is profound, and I love that challenge and that beauty of finding humanity in our differences, and it just makes you more wiser how you grow and how you operate. So yeah.
Yeah, because obviously one Kiwi who's done quite well in terms of taking his visions and his ways, and especially his comedy around the world, is Taika Waititi. And I've just started watching Reservation Dogs. I don't know if you've seen Reservation Dogs, but he's still used that humor, and I mean he uses humor in multiple ways, to tell a story, to evoke emotion, not just humor. But yeah, that Reservation Dogs, I mean that is that's been pretty well received over in the US.
Yeah, no, his sense of humor, it's transcended from New Zealand to there, and that's what makes Kiwis very unique to Hollywood in general, is that they have a different perspective in not just performance, but just in a sense of in humor as well. And I think that's worked for him. It's worked for Jermaine Clement. It's worked for several different actors that have transitioned from here to America, Reese Darby, anyone that has worked on any U.S. productions, it's worked out profoundly. Yeah, it's a Taika. Taika's definitely taken his humor and it's flown. It's flown. Like he's got Free Guy right now, with Ryan, and I'm happy for that.
Exactly.
I'm happy for
Yeah,
that.
he's
Yeah, the story of those two, because they worked together on Green Lantern, and they built this friendship that just transcended all of that. That was a DC property, and now they're working together on Marvel, and they were co-actors. They were co-stars, and now one's directing more so, one's acting. Now they're back to being co-stars on Free Guy, and that's just like what it is. That's what it means to be in the industry is if you can build genuine relationships and connections with people and value people, it goes a long way. Like gratitude, humility, it goes a long way. And I'm so happy for Taika, from where he started, way back with the Whale Rider to where he's at now. Like I'm so thrilled about his whole story. He's such a big influence on, I would say, New Zealand culture as a whole. Just representing and doing his best as an adult and as a human.
Given the current climate, obviously with COVID-19 heavily impacting the world and stuff, and being in the industry that you're in, what has the impact been of TikTok and Instagram? You see a lot of people who are TikTok famous. You put up one video, you get 1 million hits, you're done. But a lot of actors and a lot of people within the industry, they may not take that route. They might go, it's for the art. You study, you work hard, you grind, and then you see these people just do it overnight. Like, is it kind of evolving the way you kind of break into the industry, or is there some aspect of the industry that is still like, if you've gone through the trenches, it's more beneficial than kind of getting the one and done TikTok vid type thing? Like, what's it like at the moment going through the industry?
It is. It's interesting when you'll go out for an audition, which happened often in LA. You would go out for an audition, and there would be a YouTuber or a TikToker, and depending on their following, they might get the gig, not because of talent per se, but it's the marketability of that person for the fact that they have a following. The tricky side to that is if they book someone that just has a great following, but they don't have the skill set, or they haven't taken the time to actually study in the profession that they're being hired for, then you're not going to get the most professional performer involved, or they won't even have the skill set to be able to maintain, and they might actually be a nightmare to your production because you have to constantly critique them, monitor them, direct them, move them. So it's hit or miss, and that's what the whole influencer thing about that was like a massive influencer bubble. I'll say like 5 years ago, where everything was like, oh, we need an influencer. Let's get an influencer for a clothing brand, and let's sell our clothes to this influencer, or just give it to them and then they'll market it. I think it's died down. Social media does play a part in a sense of social proof, and so I think social proof means that people are able to acknowledge that you have an audience. So I think there's pros and cons to doing YouTube and TikTok and Instagram or Snapchat as far as video content wise. I think it's great for performers. I think for actors, a lot of actors get involved in it once their career has gotten to a place where they can sit back and they've got leisure time. So they shoot on a show for 6 months, and then while they're shooting on the show, or after they're done shooting, then they do their little TikTok videos, and it's fun and entertaining for their audience, and I think that's a beautiful thing. Um, but as far as the overnight success thing of TikTok and Instagram, I think that can be really great and also really tricky and damaging. And what I mean by that is it's great in the sense that you may get opportunities off that immediately, but then after getting this opportunity or seemingly a bit of success or fame, you can lose yourself in that equally as fast, and start to not have a lot of humility because you get it so quickly. You get instant gratification overnight from just running around and maybe running naked on a video, or doing antics, and so and also with that, it's a dangerous side too when it comes to production companies or producers that might be scoping you, because if you're willing to do anything on camera, then they're like, oh, let's just get this guy in the room and just see what else he's willing to do, or her, what they're willing to do to be seen. Let's just put some money on the table and let's just see what they do. And I think that's very, very dangerous, for performers in general. So I have mixed feelings about the TikToker person, not because of their talent, but I just hope that they're being safeguarded. And so when I said earlier that my career has been a slow drip, I mean a slow drip in the sense that I've had gigs here and there, but I haven't skyrocketed in a way where I'm Dwayne the Rock Johnson. So, and I'm thankful for that, because that journey has humbled me in a way that I think if I got it very quickly, I might not have been able to know how to handle it, and I would need the right support unit of people around me to be able to negate and keep my mind in a very stable and safe place, where I'm not losing myself and this idea that I'm successful. You had an opportunity, and success is not owed to you. Some people feel like success is owed to them. I've been doing acting for 11 years, I would say professionally. 11 maybe going on 12. But I don't feel like anything's owed to me. It's borrowed time. Success is borrowed time. You get a highlight there. It's that 15 minutes is borrowed time, and then you have to keep going. So you have to love the when it's up, and you gotta love when it's seemingly down. As long as you're active in what you do, whether it's acting, art, any form of art is DIY. It's a lot of DIY involved. It's a lot of do it yourself, and it takes courage to invest in yourself. But that's what you should do if you want to, have an opportunity, is believe in yourself. And it sounds cheesy, but if you don't believe in yourself, you may end up working for someone else that believed in themselves, and they might not have much planned for you. You might be just another employee on a notch. So, and I'm not saying there's anything wrong with working with anyone else. You that's what you have to do in life. Life is about people and collaboration. You have to be able to collaborate with people. So you're always going to work for somebody in some degree. But what I mean by it is doing something you love. It's doing something you love that you can wake up and do every day and invest in yourself if that makes you happy, you know. Um, so yeah, so TikToker thing, I think it's great, but I would just advise them: stay humble, be careful, and one good plus about that is you get to build your audience, and by building your audience, you have leverage. You do have leverage in a sense, in business, that they will sign you on, and you can go, okay, cool. Well, either I can work with you guys, or I can just keep making money on YouTube. Like, if you don't want to hire me, I'll just keep making money on TikTok, and I'm cool with that. But if you want to hire me, cool. So from a business point of view, it's brilliant because you have leverage of audience. So, and that's a great way to safeguard yourself, because no one can cancel you at any given moment. You only cancel yourself when you stop making videos. So I think that's the. I tell people no one can cancel you at the end of the day. Like, as long as you can communicate, you can withstand anything. If you have communication, you can overcome anything. If you're able to communicate and keep going, and if you can keep making content, you'll survive. So.
You mentioned earlier that you tried to write, you wrote 2 articles, and then you've also mentioned in the information you sent through to me that you did write a piece for the Herald as well. So is writing also a passion of yours and something that you do, consistently in between your acting gigs, or was that kind of just something that popped up at the time, given the subject matter that you wrote about?
Yeah, no, writing has become a passion of mine, and I gotten that passion out of going through hardship when I was younger, just dealing with things that put me in a position where I had to defend myself, whether that was an incident at high school with a student, and I had to write the teacher, the school board. I think different people, especially if you're of a different ethnic group and you've grown up in a Western society, you're always put in a position where you got to prove your humanity. And I would try to always improve on expressing myself and also being able to defend myself, because at face value, if you're brown, you're not trusted immediately on face value. Sometimes, depending on what environment you walk into, they might look at you and be like, we're not sure about this guy. Let's keep an eye on him. So because of that lack of humanity, you tend to have to prove more of your worth, especially if you're a male. Especially if you're a male. You're a male and you're brown, you're a target. You know. So I tell people the only three things that are loved on this earth unconditionally are women, children, and animals. If you're a man, you are loved under the condition you provide something. So because of that understanding, I really try to take the time to talk to men as well, to try to empower them to let them know their worth. I'm not pro men's rights. I'm not pro women's rights. I'm pro human rights. And human rights, women, men, and children are all included in that. But I do feel like men have it harder than a lot of other groups in different ways. So everybody, I think, has their pros and cons. They have their positives or negatives. You know, a woman can get into a nightclub for free, you know, and the man, he's got to pay $25 at the door. So it's like, you know, they've got good social things that, you know, women are very socially apt, that they have these advantages, and sometimes it's beauty related, but that's just the way it is. Society is sexist. It is on both sides. So it's like, what can we do about
Oh,
it?
100%. Yeah, I mean, if the bouncers were females, it'd probably go the other way.
Yeah, it might go the other way. Yeah, exactly. I mean, that would be interesting, you know. But it's not
You can
many
come
that.
in, you're paying 20.
Yeah, yeah. It's not many though that sign up for like a gig, you know, to just like defend, you know, men that are coming in, you know. You know, it's even in the workforce. It's some of the jobs. It's sort of veering off subject, but some of the jobs where women will sign up to, they tend to do more jobs that are social related. That's like nursing, social work. Um, some of them don't sign up for tech. Some do sign up for tech, you know, but I don't feel like there's been any real discrimination in opportunities in some places. I think in some environments it can be. You know, there's always abuse of power. We've seen abuse of power with that was on the news with Ellen, if she's a lady. So it's just like abuse of power can happen on both sides. It doesn't matter who's in the position. But I think on a job front, I think a lot of women tend to pick jobs that are social and it's not tech or technology related per se. Maybe architecture, maybe that, maybe architecture, maybe engineering, but for the most part, a lot of jobs are social related. So it's the men and women dynamic is very interesting, but I feel like they've kind of got everybody quarreling together lately, and it's I think people have lost sight of like love and companionship. But back to your question, which is about my passion for writing. Sorry guys, I took you on the highway way off to the left, but let's veer it back. All right,
We're on a journey today. We're on a journey today.
on Route 66. But yeah, but back with writing. Yeah, my love of writing just came from having to defend myself often as a male and all, as a brown person, and trying to find better ways to express myself. And like I said earlier while we're talking communication, if you can communicate, you can withstand the why and how. You know, you can withstand a lot of things in life if you're able to express yourself. When you're not able to express yourself and you internalize it, then your mental health gets put at risk. And internalizing things, it damages you from not being able to share and talk. And that's why I feel like with all subjects all around, whether that's humor, whether that's men and women's relations, I think all levels of society should be able to talk and express themselves, even if they're wrong. Express themselves. I mean, and wrong can be subjective, but what I mean by wrong, it's like in a sense of does it sound fair? Does it sound balanced? If you allow that person to express themselves and they have the patience and collaboration to hear you as well, then you can grow out of that. You can grow out of that. So, but yeah, writing just came from wanting to defend myself. So I wrote that article for the New Zealand Herald, which was about me being an African American and during Black Lives Matter in New Zealand, how that affected me, and just some key points and some messages that I feel like would help society as a whole, and different things that affected the African American community that people might not have been privy to, but it affects all ethnic groups all around in terms of colorism with the color black, and what that means and where it came from, its origins. A lot of people have no idea about the origins of how did people start calling each other black and white. It's just something people are just born into, and we do, but it's only between certain ethnic groups. You know, you never find someone that's Asian that will say, as a yellow person, I feel this. They don't identify themselves as such. They never would. And uh, something recently that happened, the Stop Asian Hate situation, where there was a shooting in Atlanta in the States where a guy went into apparently a massage parlor and shot up the entire massage parlor apparently and killed quite a few Asian women that were working at the parlor. Um, there was the campaign for Stop Asian Hate, and people were very interested in watching the situation because they were wondering why there wasn't much pushback on Stop Asian Hate, but there was pushback on Black Lives Matter. And what I found interesting is that what people weren't recognizing is that people can humanize the word Asian. They can recognize that, they can humanize it. A color they can't humanize because it's a color. It sounds like it's a subgroup. And it sounds like you're saying your group of color is better than someone else's group of color. So a lot of the issues surrounding um, race relations and the resistance against equality or diversity when it comes to race relations is largely tied up in terminology of saying your group is better than someone else's group. And that's not really what you're saying. What you're saying is Africans are being killed in the States. That's it. But because you're not saying the word African and you're using the color code, it puts people at an edge where they're like, oh, what do you mean? Are you saying your group is exceptional? Like grief is universal. You're not exceptional. So yeah. So I was just explaining that between that and there not being an acknowledgement, as in like what happened with the Dawn raids. America doesn't have an acknowledgement of its past, so it keeps people in the cycle of fighting and arguing. It'll go away for a bit. You won't hear anything about a shooting. Trust me. Like clockwork, it'll probably be another shooting in another month, and it'll be this huge outrage, and then it'll be a protest behind it. And as long as they're yelling and screaming at each other, we're not really coming to a true resolve, then we can keep them at bay and make money off them. That's part of what the new article that I wrote that was getting a lot of resistance was about. Was about the fact that division, there's profit in division, there's profit in outrage, and there's no true resolve being found. Whether people are fighting between genders about men and women, whether there's people fighting about race relations, people fighting about LGBTQ, people fighting about COVID vaccines. They knew with COVID vaccines what would happen on a society front. They knew half the population would probably get vaccinated, the other half would spend time not sure about it, arguing. And so my article my article highlighted that. So I'm like, oh, I think I might have said too much, but I don't necessarily care. I don't feel like nothing can stop what is meant for me, my journey and my career, my opportunity. I care more about humanity, human and kind. Put that together. That's all I care about, and it's things that are bigger than me, and that's what I feel like is impactful. Is I think early in life things are about you when you're younger, and I tell people your first name is for you, but as you get older, your last name is what's gonna hold its weight. That's gonna be what you're gonna be remembered by is your last name, and what are you leaving people behind? So I find myself at a point where I just really care for people, humankind, that they get these understandings that how society works in different ways. And there's a lot of money being made. Whenever there's a protest or there's some sort of outrage, a corporation will co-op that social movement, whether it's, Stop Asian Hate or if it's Black Lives Matter. They'll co-op it and go, we can make money off this. All right, let's get us African and let's put him in the show. Let's get us an Asian. Yep. He's going to be the new lead. He's the new lead in the film. And it's great. That works for my career and my industry. But Nike will do it. Toyota will do it. And it's all of this to get some sort of social gain. It's not genuine. It's not I can't say it's it's actually generosity. It's disingenuous, and in a lot of different ways. That's the time they're like, oh, let's put an LGBTQ person here. Let's make him the lead. It's like, why weren't you doing that all along? Like, just tell good stories and be genuine. Don't put people in films for like social checkpoints because you're hoping people are gonna watch it and it's hip now. We got a hip hop song on it. Hip hop's popular right now, so let's get some beats and drums. Things like that. I'm surprised a lot of society cannot spot. I spot it and I look at it and I'm like, this is cringe. Why are they doing this? It's like, make a genuine, good purpose and story and let it come from the heart. Just put people in that for the right reasons. But that's what goes on. And so as long as people are fighting, someone's making money off of it. And I just wanted people to understand that, you have to spot the bigger picture of what's going on here. Is that someone is profiting off you guys fighting at the end of the day. So as long as people can't galvanize to see that, they can't come together to see they're being played by greedy people. These greedy people that are up here in the top of their buildings, they're making money. It's like, let's leave them all yelling and fighting at the bottom. As long as they're screaming and yelling at each other and not at us, we're good. 23 genders, let's let them fight with each other. Yay, more splits. So I really want people to get back to the fundamentals and foundations of society and love, and everyone should be able to love whoever they want to love, but to not keep dividing each other up into separate entities, and then it becomes about your subgroup, and so you're not really fighting for human rights, you're fighting for your own group, whether you're being, I call it being too-ist, whether you're too communist or feminist or, I don't know, ist. If you're too far left, you become a robot. You lose your humanity. You don't start seeing things on a very level, human way. And, that can come out of victimization. And I tell people grief is universal. Grief is universal, and not to say that your grief doesn't account for it, but we're all going through something. So you have to try to think about everybody when you're getting your message across. You try to think about what everyone is going through. It's not just about your people or yourself, and you got a flat tire. You could have a flat tire. I could have a flat tire right now. I have no idea. But if I go outside and I have a flat tire, do I need to go take the rest of my day and be in a mood with other people? And the answer is no, because someone next door probably just lost their grandfather. Someone else across the hall may not know how they're going to pay their rent. So I'm saying across the hall because I'm in an apartment right now. So give away my location. Don't find me. It's going to run off camera. But, yeah.
So, yeah, nice. So a huge influence, obviously, with where you've come from, and obviously, in your younger life as well. As someone who's travelled and lived overseas, I did it for 5 years in the States. It was my mid-20s, and for me, it was a very, transformative time. Basically, when you're on the other side of the world and you don't have family and friends close by, like you're in survival mode, and you learn about not just the world and other cultures, like you said, and other people, and dating other cultures and understanding that, but like you learn a lot about yourself as well, and you learn how to survive. So being here for 11 years, like, what do you feel like you've learned that you maybe would not have learned or experienced had you just stayed and still been in the US right now? Like, what has traveling and living abroad given you?
I've learned to understand that we're all going through similar struggles, and no matter where we are geographically on Earth. And what I mean by that is, you'll meet people here in Auckland that are concerned about how they're going to pay their rent. And maybe they don't like some things that are going on with like some policies maybe in the government, or they feel like their people aren't being fully acknowledged, and or they feel like their community is being shoved off into like one corner of the city, and they put a liquor store there, They put a church there and put fast food there. And it's like, as long as there's liquor stores, churches, fast food, we've got them off into their own world. But it's just understanding everyone's going through. They have the same concerns. It's finding your humanity in all of this, and that's what I started to realize is that everyone's struggles are exactly the same. It doesn't matter where they are. They're concerned about safety, being able to feed their family, being able to have warmth, and being good housing, because there's a fair bit of housing issues that have happened throughout Auckland, and with people trying to stay warm during the winter and not be sleeping in someone's garage or in their car. But these things happen everywhere, even in LA. I've been in that position as an actor where I went to Los Angeles and I didn't have a plan, so I ended up sleeping in my car. And I knew it was my time to go to LA. I said I have to do it at some point. I need to just go, and I just went. But no one ever knew that because I was so clean and I took care of myself so well that it wasn't noticeable. And that's almost like a rite of passage for most actors. There's a lot of actors that were couch surfing, homeless, sleeping in a car before their career took off. You'll hear that very often, especially LA, because LA is expensive. But in New Zealand and being here, I just found out everyone's struggles are the same, and it put me in perspective to know that what I thought I knew about the world and being in America.
Nice. And have you been able to get on board with the Kiwi sport, rugby and cricket, or are you still do you still follow NBA, NFL, or the sports back home?
I like sports in general, but like I haven't been able to follow any sports really, just because I feel like I've been down in the trenches, like trying to stay active with like building with my opportunities that may come my way and creating opportunities. And that's the cool thing about being an artist is that you get to create opportunities and meet people and collaborate. So your collaboration skills is what matters with everything. What value can you bring to somebody else's life more than just about your life and your career and stuff. Same with relationships. Back to relationships again. It's not your independence. It's your collaboration that matters. It's how good are you working with people, and that's what determines value in a sense, because life is about people. It's bigger than me and my and me. Because you'll find out very quickly no one likes you when you talk about me. But yeah, so yeah, but I follow some sport. I think I don't understand rugby fully. I'm still watching it, but I don't understand it fully. I went to the NRL nines like several years ago, and that was a great experience. I was humbled. Someone invited me up to the box, so I got to sit up there at the top.
Nice.
But I think with sports is one of those things where you don't need to know the rules of everything. You'll fall in love with it off the energy and the fact that everyone's chanting and they're rooting and they're excited, for whatever color team they're going for, or whatever team they're excited. They're just going for it, and that in itself, that human bonding connection, which is kind of missing right now because of COVID, but that human connection with everyone being together, that's where the excitement comes from. So I still need to learn more about rugby, footy over in Aussie, cricket here.
Yeah.
I still need to learn more about it, but I will in due time. I'm sure of it. Because it's a big staple here.
Yeah, I mean, one thing I'll say is that I got to go to NBA games, baseball and stuff like that, and I mean, unreal. Like, you guys do it big, like massive stadiums. So I mean, I was blown away. I enjoyed that, man. Sports over there is done right. Like here it's cool, but like there's no real sort of over there it's kind of similar to like how you see football in the UK. Like you literally two supporters from the different teams cannot be next to each other. Like they'll literally kill each other. Whereas here it's just like, oh, you support Australia? Nah, it's just you can just sit, you can coexist, and that's nice. But to have that rivalry and like yeah, exactly. But when the rival team comes through and you're just hurling sort of abuse at the players, and it's just part of it. They just take it. I don't know why, but they accept it.
Yeah, no, that's America and the UK. I mean, New Zealand is very community minded. They're very community minded. I think that's a beautiful thing, to not go too far left for a group, for your subgroup, and then lose your humanity. But that, in the divided states, that's why I call it. In the divided states, it happens there all the time. And obviously in Europe, they have their own issues being on borders and stuff like that. And so, yeah, they really take their sport to the next level. I mean, but that passion it's admirable, so.
It was interesting because I was playing rugby over there, so and the Americans obviously, yeah. So I was playing, and we would obviously go to different states and stuff, and to experience Americans, I guess, adopting the ethos, or the general the down ethics of rugby is just like, on the field you want to kill a man, but after that you'll actually go to the pub and have a drink with them, like. And the Americans, they're like, man, it's such a gentleman's game. Like, you'll literally want to kill you on the field, but as soon as the whistle blows, like, you're best friends. Like, you share your life experiences and stuff like that. And so, as a culture, for me, the culture of rugby being transported around the world, like, for me, that was pretty deep, because I also, in a past life, I was a dancer as well. So I did a lot of research into breakdancing and hip hop culture, and hip hop as a culture. Yeah. So hip hop dance and where that came from, similar to rugby, like, it doesn't matter what your skin color is if you break dance. Like, the language you speak is dance. And so to have that with rugby as well, it was like, they didn't care who you were. Like, you played rugby, so you were a rugby player. And that was the culture. And it's the same as hip hop culture and breaking, You're a b-boy, you're a b-girl. The language you speak is dance. And the arts and sports can be powerful like that. Like, that's how the rest of the world should see humanity. Like, there's no division. Like, you break, you have a battle, 3 rounds, I'm gonna kill you, but then after
that,
nothing.
dap up, respect.
Exactly.
Man, that must have been interesting. You playing rugby in the States like that. Like, which part of the States were you in?
So I was living in Boston for 5 years. So yeah, interesting place to live. Interesting place to live in the northeast. But yeah, obviously through rugby, had a lot of different cultures coming through. I mean, there are a lot of Irish. I actually met a lot of other Kiwi guys who would come through. A lot of Australians, South Africans, and then a lot of African Americans as well. And people say what they have their opinions about Massachusetts and Boston, but like I said, within the rugby, that didn't exist, which was good for us outsiders, us non-Americans, and a lot of people, talked about the mass holes and stuff like that, and I just said, and you might feel the same here. Like, honestly, I had an accent, so I was foreign. Like, people just loved me, like,
yeah, they do.
People didn't hate me.
Yeah, in the States, you're gold. Like, if you've got a different accent and you're from somewhere else, you're absolute gold. You'll pick up whoever you want,
It was money.
Yeah. If you're a ladies' man, you're going to get ladies all day with that accent.
Yeah, and, the only sort of confusion I would get regularly is, when I hopped in an Uber, I'm somewhat bronzed, and if I had a bit of facial hair, they would say, Espanol, and I'd be like, no. So, that was the only issues I had.
Man, that's cool though. Like, that's what I'm saying. That's the beauty of New Zealand is people looking ethnically ambiguous too. There's a lot of Kiwis that, just even being moldy. I think when moldies go to the States, people don't recognize that they're moldy, so they'll assume that they're like Latin American or they're from somewhere else in South America, and yeah, that's Cliff Curtis, like, as an actor, that guy. He
Yep.
played every ethnic group. And he
He's covered
doesn't.
all the bases.
Yeah, he's covered all bases before any kind of outrage. So he's yeah. But having that is beautiful, and you being different, and you having your culture and your perspective and everything. That's beautiful to have to bring over to the States. And I never thought about rugby being how it's conducted being more of like a gentleman's type sport, and just you explaining that to me just gave me so much more admiration for rugby, just in general, and how they go about the culture, and they play the games, and then after that we're bros. There's no real extreme rivalries. Most sports groups there's extreme like rivalries, like it's like I don't like those guys that play for that team or whatever. Like New Yorkers don't like people from Boston. So it's like
Exactly.
it's extreme. It's extreme. Most of my family's from New York. They're all from NYC, so from all over, from Bronx to Manhattan. So yeah, you mentioned somebody from Boston, and like they're racist, man. It's like
Yeah,
it's Irish.
and that's and you, yeah, exactly. And that was funny. We'd play rugby against teams from New York, and same thing. Like we're like, oh, there's the Boston New York rivalry, but then after the game,
That's amazing.
we're having pints together. Like it's different. It's different. And you wouldn't see that. You wouldn't see the Yankees having a drink with the Red Sox, or vice versa. Knicks, Celtics. That would not happen.
No, not at all. Not at all, man.
Yeah.
Good man. Oh wow, that must have been a great
Hey,
experience.
just a random question. Like, how did you come across my podcast?
I came across your podcast. I listened to bits and pieces of your podcast with my friend Lucina. Um, I don't know if
All
you
right.
know Lucina. She was the New Zealand's first female bachelorette. Yeah, they kind of paired her up
Yeah.
with a brown girl and a blonde girl. I till this day I'm like, what was that? I like, could we just let one person have their shine? But I felt like that was New Zealand being like, well, we don't know about diversity, how it's gonna work, so put them together because we don't.
Yeah.
And yeah, they need to do better. They need to do better. But she ended up being on.
Exactly.
Yeah, but she ended up being on there, and me and her we met prior. We went to I told you I studied acting here in New Zealand. We studied with the same acting coach, me and her. We studied with an
Oh,
acting
nice.
coach named Michael Cicenti. He's an American Sicilian. He's Italian, but from New York. Moved to New Zealand 25 years ago, I think, because of marriage, and he just stayed here, and he's been teaching acting ever since. And he's taught some big Kiwi actors. Anthony Starr and Carl Urban are two of his actors that he's worked with that I would say probably even proteges, but those are the top two actors he's worked with here, and they're both on The Boys, the Amazon TV show. It's a superhero TV show. It's real brutal and violent and bloody. They're the two leads on it. It's the number one show on Amazon. It's a superhero show. So, but yeah, me and Lucina, we studied with him, and I ended up getting a music video gig. I got here into the music video gig, and we just stayed in touch ever since. Man, she's gorgeous, beautiful lady, very beautiful lady. She's a doctor. She's a doctor as well too. So it's
I
like
know.
she can break your heart and fix it all at once. But yeah, I discovered your podcast through Lucina. I didn't tell her. I went and I was just going through different things. I was just checking up on people, seeing how they're doing. I came across the fact that you did a podcast with her. And I was like, man, this is really cool. That she's sharing her story and her journey a bit, and you guys were both talking as well about life. And I was interested in wanting to find a way that I could get on a podcast and be able just to share something more than just about my career as a part of it, but like the human aspect of things that can help people in society. So I was like, yeah, I wanted to reach out to you and do a podcast, man, and just be able to provide something locally. We don't know how vast the market is. I mean, your podcast might get. I mean, it's global, so someone else may listen to it in Singapore. You never know where someone's gonna listen to it. But it's just about getting out good messages. That's the beauty of what we live in, which I call the age of sharing. We live in the age of sharing, where back in the day, we couldn't do this on our own. We thought we would need probably like $5,000 worth, or not $5,000, probably 50 grand worth of equipment to be able to sit here and talk to each other. We probably did. I don't know, but the fact that we can go on YouTube now and generation, I also call it generation search. If you can mine information, you're a very powerful person. You're resourceful. You're resourceful at finding stuff and not giving up. And this young generation, that's what they're good at. They're good at searching, looking up information. Hopefully, if they're interested in it, but trying to read deeper into things. But if they want to do something, they'll go and figure out how to do it. Where older generations will just look at that computer and I don't know about that thing. Technology, scared of that thing. Now, we gotta press a button. So but that's how I came across you. It's just the fact that we're able to share things, and this is beautiful. This is beautiful, and thank you. I'm grateful.
Oh, nice, man.
You've got me on.
That's cool. I'm glad that you were able to kind of follow my podcast. And it's funny because Lucina is a small world, is Cam's cousin. And like after I had her on my podcast, he was like, "Oh, that was my cousin." And then he did a episode with her too.
Oh, that's amazing. That would have been good fun just to bounce off two different people and yeah. Yeah,
exactly. So, but yeah, small world. So, yeah, that's what I was asking about the sport too, because we try and talk about American sports. So if you did ever want to jump in and have a chat about just some sports, we can do that.
Yeah, I'm trying to keep up on things, man, as much as I can. I think I'm more up on whatever's happening in UFC and boxing, probably more so than anything.
Well, that's good. It's technically it's American sports, so.
Yeah, I'm watching hip hop battles too. I'm watching the Versus thing, so watching Jadakiss, battling with Dipset, and so I'm watching things here and there. But yeah, definitely, man. I would be keen on sitting around and talking, chatting up some sports and seeing what's the haps. For sure.
Nice, man. Well, yeah, really appreciate you taking some time to have a chat today. Was there anything else you kind of wanted to talk about before we kind of wrap things up?
No, nothing off top, man. I think I've said a lot of gems here and there that I felt like I wanted to try to get out, and it just sort of happened naturally in the conversation. So I'm just grateful to be able to talk to you, man, and just have the privilege of being able to speak. And salutes to you for you taking a chance on yourself doing this podcast, and just creating something. Everybody starts from just doing something, just trying, so starting, so I think I froze up for a second there.
Yeah.
I was like, stuck like that for like 10 seconds.
Still good. Yeah, no, I appreciate you reaching out.
Thank you, man. I was going to start the podcast with me frozen. I was just going to be like this and see if you'd catch it. Like, I think we lost him. He's just...
Yeah, man. Well, we'll definitely maybe we'll tee up another episode soon. Who knows how long we could be in lockdown. So have some more gems to drop.
World is uncertain right now, for sure. Love to. Thank you so much, man. Awesome, brother.
Thank you very much, man.
Thank you. All right, brother. Peace.